I want to start with an introduction of our two candidates. Clint Didier is a longtime resident of the Mid-Columbia. He grew up on his family's farm near Eltopia, graduated from Connell High School. He attended Columbia Basin College. Then he moved on to playing football for Portland State University. He topped that off with 9 seasons in the NFL, winning 2 Super Bowl rings as a member of the Washington Redskins. Next, he returned to farming in eastern Washington. Clint and his wife have 4 children and still call Eltopia their home. Please welcome Clint Didier. Dan Newhouse is also a longtime resident of the region. He was raised in Sunnyside, where his family owned and operated a farm. In 1977, he graduated with a degree in agricultural economics from Washington State University. He's also a graduate of the Washington Agriculture and Forestry Leadership Program. From 2003 to 2009, he served in the Washington State House of Representatives, and from 2009 to 2013, he served as director of Washington State's Department of Ecology. Dan currently operates his family's farm in Sunnyside with his wife Carol and their 2 adult children. Please welcome Dan Newhouse. Well, there's my first mistake. It's not the Department of Ecology, it's agriculture. Yes, agriculture. Ecology would be interesting too. Today's forum is all about economic issues, primarily that are important to the Tri-Cities area, but also as it relates to the state of Washington and the entire nation. Our questions were provided by regional chamber members. I did not make up these questions. I do like them, but I want you to know that they came from chamber members. They're going to have a bent that's about business and about economy. The candidates were not provided the questions in advance, so they might be taking notes about what they're going to do. Here's our format today. We're going to have opening statements, 3 minutes long. Then we're going to have responses to questions that are 2 minutes, and we have a closing statement that's 2 minutes long. I want to emphasize today that this is a forum and not a debate, because people have already talked to me several times like, oh, I hope you'll get between them, and that's not the environment that this is. Your job is to listen to what they have to say about the questions and how they answer them. I won't be interrupting them. And I want to encourage you not to clap because it takes up time. So please don't. We have regional chamber members who are right down here in front who are keeping track of time. I will step on them, however, if they go over their time. So we chose who will start with the opening statement, and that is Mr. Didier.
Thank you. Thanks to the Regional Chamber of Commerce for having us here, and all you fine folks. Thanks for coming. I believe in America. I believe Ronald Reagan was right when he said that America was and is the last best hope of mankind. I believe in the American dream because I lived it. I believe the greatest threat to each of us and our children in achieving the American dream is the size and scope of the federal government. I believe in life. Our Declaration of Independence said explicitly that the first and primary purpose of the federal government is to protect life, innocent human life, liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. I believe in the Constitution. It is the only guarantee and promise that each of us has as to the protection of our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Without it, we are no longer a republic, but a democracy. And in a democracy, 20 elected officials can sit in a room and take everything you own. Only the rule of law The supreme law of the land, our Constitution, prevents this. That is what makes America a republic. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I do not believe that any minority group should have the presumption to change 4,500 years of social and moral code. I believe in God. It's all right if you don't, but I do. That's what's the great thing about America. Freedom of worship, the freedom of speech, and to express our beliefs. I'm running for Congress in order to stand and promote these beliefs, because I believe that the majority of our problems today we are facing is because we have wandered from these ideals. So I'm worried about the ability of our children and yours to achieve their American dream. That's why I have signed a written pledge that I will vote for no new or increase in existing taxes. And I will vote against any bill that raises the federal government by $1, regardless of party. So help me God. When we are successful in this, and that's just a start, then I want to turn our focus onto downsizing this federal government. Thank you.
Mr. Newhouse?
Thank you, Christine. Thank you to the Tri-Cities Regional Chamber for holding this forum. And thanks to everybody for attending and being a part of this important election in 2014. Let me just tell you a little bit more about myself. As you heard, I was born and raised in Central Washington. I'm a third-generation farmer. My son makes fourth. I was elected 4 times to the Washington State House of Representatives, where I was recognized by many business groups for my pro-growth policies. And I served 4 years as the director of the Washington State Department of Agriculture, where I reduced overhead and cut budgets. And while I was director, I'm very proud of the fact that agricultural exports doubled from the state of Washington. I'm a Republican who will fight for a constitutional balanced budget amendment. I'll work to replace the Affordable Care Act with a plan that actually works, to increase access to health care, to improve the quality of care, and to control costs. I'll support Second Amendment rights, and I'm very happy to announce that just yesterday the National Rifle Association has endorsed me in this campaign. And I believe that land decisions are best made at the local level, not by federal bureaucracies. You know, I'm a frustrated citizen as well. Someone who is very tired of seeing Washington, D.C. not accomplish much of anything. Our national debt, it's growing to a size that even a human brain is having a hard time comprehending. We need immigration reform to secure our borders in this ever increasingly dangerous world we live in, and we need to provide a stable workforce. Our infrastructure is falling into disrepair. I'm happy to be here today. Many business groups have endorsed my campaign, as I said, and I'm looking forward to the questions that will come today. And again, thank you very much for having this forum.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newhouse, and we're going to start with you with our first question.
Okay.
We'll be bouncing back and forth. So it's actually a little bit of extension of the opening. I want you to give us some background on your personal business experience and how it will influence your actions as congressman.
Well, my personal business experience is just what I've said. I was born and raised on a farm. Had to struggle with the challenges of farm life, the challenges of markets that you have no control over, and certainly the challenge of Mother Nature, who certainly makes her presence known every single day. Having to sign the front side of a paycheck, having to balance budgets, having to come up with budgets to get back past your banker, having to pay off mortgages. That's the reason I have so much gray hair, to tell you the truth. Also, my wife started her own business, and for 20 years ran a retail office supply store where we learned very quickly the challenges of running a business of your own on Main Street and having the competition from many different sources in today's business economy. So I will approach those kinds of issues that come before Congress from a very personal perspective, one who has lived those challenges, who has been able to live under the regulations and rules that have been passed. And I think that kind of perspective is something that will be very valuable for the people of the 4th Congressional District.
Okay. Mr. Didier?
Well, I was born right north of here at Lady of Lords, grew up on a farm in Eltopia, Washington. It was once called Hell to Pay. And it got the name because of the heat that the railroad workers had to work through to lay those ties and irons. My mom and dad lived in a tent for the first year. As a youngster, we learned how to do without. Everything wasn't handed to this family. We had to earn it. I went from there to play college, as it was told earlier, and I got to live the American dream and play in 3 Super Bowls with the Washington Redskins that I most proudly proclaim. And then I came back with my wife, Christy, and we've been farming ever since. And in the mixed, I served on the FSA State Committee. And I learned the first question that I asked the committee members up there of a room of about 30 people, I asked them, what % of the farm bill is food stamps? And nobody knew the answer. They said, I'll have that for you after lunch. They came back after lunch, the lady did, and she was shocked. She says, I'm shocked. She says 72% or 78% of the farm bill is food stamps, child nutrition, and temporary assistance for needy families. And today, with the removal of countercyclical and direct countercyclical, it's up into the 80s. So my question is, why do we still call it the Farm Bill and lay it on the backs of the farmers that we are the ones that are receiving all this gratis? When in actuality, it's a welfare bill. And we must appropriately put it that way. Thank you.
All right, here's question number 2. Clinton, we'll start with you. What do you see as the most important issues facing the 4th District economy today?
Well, knowing that the 4th District is heavily farming, I would say that the agencies plays a big role in this because we have just been listed, this area, with an endangered species, the white bluffs bladderpot, which fellow farmers and I and my wife put money into a fund to take this sample of the white bluffs and the other bladderpods around the state and the bordering states to Idaho State University. And we asked for a DNA analysis. They came back that there was no difference. We showed it to the United States Fish and Wildlife. And the United States Fish and Wildlife says we cannot recognize your study because it wasn't done by an official agency. And then they labeled our white bluff bladderpod as an endangered species, and they attribute its demise to the Columbia Basin Irrigation Project. If we lose our water, ladies and gentlemen, the 4th District loses its avenue to create wealth. We have to hang on to our water. So I attribute the biggest demise to the 4th is the agencies that are undermining our ability to remain profitable with the access of water from an abundantly flowing Columbia River. And that is what I'm going back to fight for, is the water for the Columbia Basin.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, I certainly will. What do you see as the most important issues facing the 4th District economy today?
Okay. Well, there's a long list of issues that impact the economy in central Washington and the 4th District. I would agree with my opponent. Agriculture certainly is a driving factor in our economy. The ability to keep agriculture competitive, food production safe and secure is a huge part of our economy, and that's something that we need to work very hard to maintain. So maintaining our exports, our competitiveness, certainly our source of water to make our desert bloom, those are the kind of things that we have to make sure we have. And on top of that, a stable workforce so we can make the wheels go round. Certainly in this area, Hanford, the cleanup of Hanford, the future of Hanford, those are the kinds of issues that are a huge part of our economy now and into the next several decades. And that's something that we have to maintain and continue keeping those commitments that the federal government has made. On the national level, I got to point to the national debt. It impacts the economy not only of Central Washington, but of the entire United States. And that's something that we must, as a country, get a handle on of curbing the amount of spending that we have in this country. And lastly, I would say that having certainty in tax policies gives business people the kind of peace of mind that they need to make investments. And that's something that I will look to do when I get to Washington, D.C. as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on and talk about health care. Regional Chamber members frequently cite health care costs as a major concern for their business. So what kinds of specific actions would you support to address health care costs? And to this group, I want to say it is not acceptable for you to just say, I will repeal Obamacare, because the people in this audience want to know what is next. Keeping that in mind, Mr. Newhouse?
Well, there's several things that come to mind that I think we could do on the federal level to improve the current health system that we have. I've said that I'm opposed to the Affordable Care Act, but there are some things in the meantime, well, it is the law of the land, at least for the near future, that we've got to look at doing. One of those things, I believe, is allowing small businesses to be able to pool their resources together in order to find affordable health insurance for their employees. I think that that would be quite helpful. Another thing, you realize that there are only a handful of health insurance providers allowed to do business in the state of Washington. I think we need to have a more competitive atmosphere, more competitive environment. There are dozens around the country that offer health coverage, and I think that would be something that would certainly insert competitiveness, which is a good thing, into the health coverage market. Those are the kinds of things that I think small businesses can look at. Encouraging their employees to participate in health savings accounts is another thing that would be very helpful in reducing the cost of health coverage. And I think we need to look at ways that we can actually improve while at the same time reduce those costs by using the lowest cost providers. Maybe it isn't always the hospital. Maybe some of the neighborhood clinics can do some of the main things that people need to have done at a different competitive rate. So there are several things that can be done, and I'm very anxious to be able to start working on this program, because this is a critical issue that we face in the United States today. Healthcare is very personal to all of us. When you're talking about the health of yourself and your family, you want to be able to make the decisions that make the most sense for you, instead of having the federal government mandate to you what needs to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. Mr. Didier?
Well, let's just say.
Oh.
Okay. Let's just say my wife and I were personally touched by this, Obamacare. We were canceled. And so it has directly affected me. Yes, I want to defund, and then I want to get rid of Obamacare. I want government out of our health care. I want to repeal it, but first let's defund it. Do you realize this continuing resolution they just passed funds Obamacare? Do you realize that it funds Planned Parenthood? So the shock and awe that's happening over in Syria is going to be the shock and awe that's happening right here in this country. You, the taxpayer, are funding abortion when we were told that we would never have that put on our backs. Now, what are the answers? Obviously, we know government's not the answer. So we need to get government out of it. We need competition. Joe Gibbs, when he brought in 8 tight ends to take my job every year, he told me, and the other players, competition will bring out the best in everyone. So let's let these insurance companies shop their services nationwide. And this is when the federal government plays a role. One of their responsibilities, commerce between states. This is when they'll have their role in it. Second, tort reform. We got to stop the frivolous lawsuits. But in doing that, we cannot lose our 7th Amendment right, a jury of our peers. And third, health savings accounts, tax-free in and tax-free out. Government has no business putting their hands on our money that we put into our health savings account. Those are 3 legitimate answers.
Thank you. I'm going to start with you this time around, Clint. We're going to talk about Hanford.
Okay.
The specific question has to do with, do you believe that the proposed spending for the Hanford site is sufficient? And secondly, do you believe there are ways to find savings as a way to help the nation's budget deficit, to help reduce it?
Well, you know, I was asked this question at the League of Women Voters. They asked if $2.2 billion was sufficient. And I said, are you kidding me? Do you know how much $2.2 billion is? 1 billion seconds ago, 1959. I'm 1 billion seconds old. 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus Christ was walking on the face of the earth. And 1 billion hours ago, we were in the Stone Age. Now, 2 billion is a lot. But do you realize we've spent $35 billion at Hanford already in the cleanup? And we have yet to touch the 56 million gallons of high-level waste? All we've done, ladies and gentlemen, is touch the low-hanging fruit. We have to have accountability out at Hanford. We need cleanup to happen. This is our backyard. We, the people of the Columbia Basin, need to be demanding that our funds are being used. Now, I regress from saying that $2.2 billion is enough. In 2015, it's going to go up another $1.5 billion in cleanup out here. It's needed. We have 56 million gallons of high-level waste that we have yet to touch. We need that glassification plant finished. In 1986, we paid for 10 tanks, each 1.1 million gallons, cost $10 million, 1.5 years to complete. Today, we're looking at one tank, 1.1 million gallons, 4 years to complete, 100 million. That's what we're facing with right now at Hanford.
They're very good at responding to their cues for time. So, do you understand the question about Hanford spending?
Is $2 billion annually enough? It is a big number, but we have a big problem out at the Hanford Reservation. The legacy of the winning World War II and winning the Cold War, which we were all certainly very proud to have a part in, the federal government made the mess, and I believe the federal government needs to clean it up. Is it enough? Depends on who you talk to. But I will not be advocating cuts to the cleanup of Hanford. But that doesn't mean that we can't do things as efficiently as possible. I've talked to contractors, I've talked to labor organizations, impressing upon, in those conversations, the importance of demonstrating to people in the United States that that $2 billion is being well spent, that it's being used as efficiently as possible. I know full well, being a freshman congressman, trying to bring home $2 billion a year is not going to be an easy task. In fact, it's quite a daunting task, to tell you the truth. But we need to show, and I think if we can show that we're making improvements, we're causing efficiencies, and we're using that money in the way it's supposed to be used, that we can continue to be successful in making sure that the process continues and that the work continues to clean up this enormous problem that we have. Are there efficiencies to be found? Absolutely, I think so. And we need to work hard to make sure that we know what those are, and like I said, to be able to make that case to others that that money has to continue coming to Hanford. And I will do all I can to make sure that the federal government's commitment is held.
Okay. Dan, I'm going to stay with you now for this next question. This is actually question number 5. What is one legislative proposal important to you that you believe you can work in a bipartisan way with the president and with the other side? Basically, you as a Republican working with the Democrats. Name one legislative proposal.
Well, Christine, the first thing that comes to mind is probably, in my mind, one of the most pressing issues that we face not only in this nation but in Central Washington, and that's immigration reform. It's probably one of the most hot-button issues that we have in front of us today, with strong opinions on both sides. Many divergent opinions within my own party, the Republican Party, and I understand that some of those obstacles are going to be harder to overcome than they may be from the opposition party. But I think a lot of people, and I hope the majority of people, are coming to the realization that we have got to get this problem solved. Like I said earlier, in this ever increasingly dangerous world we live, we've got to secure our borders. There's just so many people that have the stated desire that their object in life is to destroy the United States of America. So we have to know who's coming across our borders. And then economically, and maybe selfishly, since a farmer I am and I use a lot of migrant workers, we need to have a stable work supply, employee supply in this country. Not just for agriculture, but for many, many segments of our economy that depend on a migrant workforce. So I think there's a lot of common ground that we can find there. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. Other countries have been able to come up with solutions to allow people to cross their borders, work, and then when the work's done, go home. And then feel confident that they can be able to cross that border again when the work is available. I think we can do it here in the United States. Frankly, I'm just embarrassed that we have an immigration policy as we do today in the United States of America. It's something that we've got to fix. We need a policy that we can be proud of, that helps build our economy, strengthens our communities, and gets rid of the underground population that lives in the shadows in this country today. Our country depends on it for our security, and our economy does as well.
Thank you. Mr. Didier, one proposal that you believe that you could work with the Democrats on.
And one of the purposes of our federal government, national security. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got open borders, flat out. We are being teased with the fact that they think we have border security and we don't. Now, how do we propose to secure that border? We have already the apparatus in place. It's our military. In 2005, our military was on the border and nothing crossed the border. No drugs, no people, nothing. It was only until the federales decided to get the nerve up to charge one of our positions that we discovered, or they discovered, our military personnel weren't even armed and they had to retreat. We need a presence on the border to secure this border. We are already seeing the ill effects of the wave of people coming from South America, from Honduras. The flu epidemic that has hit the Midwest is because of these people. Now, what about ISIS? What about all these terrorist groups that want to inflict pain on America? We're allowing them to come in also. It is the precedence of this government right now to secure this border immediately using our military. Why is it that we're on foreign soil securing foreign countries' borders, but we can't do our own? It's because of the political will. They don't have the political will to do it. I will join the forces of the Liberty Caucus members already in place in DC to do just this, and to reach across the aisle to our Democratic foes and tell them we have to secure the border for a safe country for our children.
Thank you, Clint. Here's question number 6, and I'm going to turn to you first.
Okay.
What specific actions would you take to address federal spending and balance the budget? And I want to, again, throw out the caveat that everyone in this room, I think, already agrees that they want to do that. They want to reduce federal spending, and they want to balance the budget. So the question to you is, what would you do? What actions would you take? What do you support?
And I've already said that in my opening statement. It takes a commitment of a candidate, his pledge to the people. My pledge to you is no new taxes, no increase in existing taxes. Anything that grows the size of this federal government by $1 regardless of party, I will vote against, so help me God. That's my commitment to you. But honestly, we got to have leadership in the House. I've already made another pledge to you, and it has hurt me in my fundraising in D.C. I will not vote for John Boehner. He is not leadership. He has the tools in his war chest right now to rein this government under control, and he won't do it. All funds are appropriated in the House, and yet he refuses to do this. Instead, he shuffles it on to the judicial branch. This is not leadership. We need true leadership. That's why I vowed to not vote for John Boehner and to look for true leadership when I get back there. The Liberty Caucus members are also like-minded. They want leadership that they can look to and follow. We're not getting it now. And so my other pledge to you is new leadership in the House. I refuse to vote for a leader that won't stand with the tools that he has in his war chest. We need somebody with guts back in D.C. right now, ladies and gentlemen, because the time is growing thin with our national debt.
Okay. Dan?
Some of the things that I would think would be very effective in helping to balance our federal budget, which I think was the question.
Yes.
Like I said in my opening statements, I would work very hard to pass a constitutional amendment that would require a balanced budget. It's become painfully obvious that our current Congress does not have the fiscal discipline to do that. So that would be the first order of business. You know, as a past agency director here in the state of Washington, I know for a fact, and you probably all suspect, that I don't care what government agency you're talking about, you can find ways to cut back, to find efficiencies, to save money. State level, I know that for a fact. I'm guessing it's got to be true on the federal level as well. Just add a few zeros to the kinds of efficiencies you can find. And I'm talking every agency, from defense all the way down. But we have to be more efficient with the money we have and provide the important services that people require. I know it can be done. We did it at the Department of Agriculture. There's going to be a lot of difficult decisions, though. You know, many people in this country get something from the federal government, and they don't like to give that up. And politically, that's a difficult choice for a politician to make, to take something away. But you know, if we're going to have a country that has a bright future, we've got to come to the realization that the United States government just cannot provide everything for everybody. Those are going to be difficult choices to make, but I think we have to for the good of our future.
Okay. Dan, here's our next question, and I kind of reversed my order a little bit here, so.
Did you?
Do you believe climate change is a major threat to our economy? Do you support proposals such as cap and trade? How would you specifically promote a balance between environmental protection and a competitive business climate?
You know, I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to travel abroad, seen countries like China where they have no regard whatsoever for their environment. Not only can you see the air, but you can almost cut it with a knife. When they want to build something, they just do it. They don't care what happens to their land, their air, or their water. And even though we in the United States complain about some of the environmental rules that we live under, I can see a need for being responsible. As a farmer, I believe farmers are the first original conservationists. However, having said that, I don't think having a good environment and a robust economy are mutually exclusive. I think you can find ways that they can coexist. I struggled a lot with our own State Department of Ecology as well as the Environmental Protection Agency while I was State Director of Agriculture on many issues pertaining to the use of land, water, and air in our state as it pertains to farming. And I think that we can find a balance. We absolutely have to find a balance in order to preserve our economic way of life, but also to preserve the environment that we all share. It can be done. I've been involved in many different things that have allowed that to happen. When EPA was trying to impose buffers, spray zones around bodies of water, we were able to insert common sense into their rulemaking, and we're able to stave off unreasonable, unrealistic rules that they were trying to impose and still protect the environment. So I think it can be done and it must be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Repeat the question, please.
Let me do it. Okay. Do you believe climate change is a major threat to the economy? Do you support proposals such as cap and trade? How would you specifically promote a balance between environmental protection and comprehensive business climate?
I believe that the legislation that's being put down on America today is a very viable threat to our economy. We're being asked to live up to standards that the rest of the world are not. And as I told you in the opening, when I was a child, I remember a day here in the basin of 121 degrees, and then another day that year at 117 because I was pulling pipe out of a sugar beet field. Honestly, last year we had one day over 100, and the year before that we didn't have a day over 100 degrees. The science is not there. I believe this is a hoax to gain more control over the American people, more control and more taxation. That's why it's a viable threat to our economy. I'm not in favor of cap and trade. I would have voted against it. I'm not in favor of us shipping our coal over to China, where you can cut the air with a knife. I mean, after all, if it's so terrible to burn it here in America, where we have some of the greatest coal-fired plants in the world that burn the cleanest, why are we shipping it to China? It makes no sense. We need energy here. We need to be energy independent, so we're not relying on that oil from the Middle East. And we have it here. That's why I'm already working with the American Lands Council on releasing all these federal lands in the West back to the states so that the states may profit and use those resources to create wealth. The free market system that we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. I'm going to start with you now for this next question. And I know that I didn't ask it, but it has been answered a bit in some of your responses already, but I'm going to go back to it because it's so important here. It's immigration. It's so important to the 4th District. What legislation would you support on immigration reform that would best benefit the economy of the 4th District? So specific kinds of information in terms of what to do for immigration reform that affects people and businesses right here.
I've already met with some orchardists, and they're letting their fruit hit the ground because they don't have the workers. We need workers. But honestly, we need the Department of Labor and Industries here in the state. We need our state legislators to allow our kids to start to learn a work ethic again. How are we supposed to maintain our ability to profit and to work when we don't allow our kids to learn a work ethic? First, let's secure the border. Get the border secure with our military. Second, let's set up a plan, a visa program, a legitimate one-year visa program, and we let an organization like maybe MAPS take control of this. Keeps track of every worker and who they work for. The employer will send in 1/4 of that worker's check to MAPS. At the end of the year, they go to the border to get their 1/4 of their check. They got skin in the game. The only way they get it is to make sure they go home. And then they sign up for the next year visa, as long as they haven't broken our laws. If they want to remain in our country, then they go to a designated area and they sign up, as long as they haven't broke our laws, they sign up, they get their 1/4 of their money, and we know where they're at, and they go back to work. We have to have accountability of where these people are at. It's a simple plan, and government has no place in it because we have a private sector business running the operation, keeping track of the funds. And you ask, well, how do they profit? Well, that 1/4 amount of money comes in, goes into a bank. They earn the interest off the monies that are in the bank. It's as simple as that. It's a way to fix it without government getting more involved.
Immigration?
Immigration reform, I touched on it earlier, but this is one of the biggest issues that we face in Central Washington. It truly is. I agree, we need to secure our borders. The world is becoming more dangerous every day. But we also need a supply of a stable workforce. That's just the economic reality. So how do we do that? I'm not for amnesty. I don't believe that we need to reward people for breaking the law. I do believe, though, that people can be held accountable and be provided, if they pass background checks, have to face a penalty, and maybe even be required to have some proficiency in the English language, I think would be a good idea. But allow them to be here under legal status so that we know who's here, provide them with some kind of a visa, a work visa, that allows them to be here, work legally, and then, like I said, return home when the work is done, which I think many people would, if they had the confidence that they could return when their work resumed. Like I said, it's not rocket science. Other countries in the world have figured this out, and we can too. I'm not talking about citizenship. Like I said, amnesty we tried that once and that didn't work. But we do need to find a way that we can provide a legal source of workers who want to contribute to our American economy, have a piece of the American dream, and are so important to so many different parts of our economic fabric, not only in Central Washington and in the rest of the country. You know, on my farm, we depend on the migrant workers, and I want a legal workforce. In my community, I want people who are here legally. When you're driving up and down the freeway, I want people that have legal licenses and have a legal right to be here and have all the responsibilities that entails. And I think we owe that to our communities. Thank you.
Okay. Let's turn our attention right now to the minimum wage, and that certainly is a big topic of conversation for people who run or operate businesses. Washington State, as everybody knows, has the highest minimum wage in the country. It's $9.32 an hour. The president has proposed $10.10 as a federal minimum wage. As many people know and have discussed, Seattle is looking at an idea of $15 an hour. The national minimum wage right now is $7.25 an hour. That was established in 2009, has not changed since then. Currently, the state of Washington has a higher minimum wage than the federal, so the state law takes over. But as your position representing people in the 4th District and looking at it from a national perspective, how do you think that you would approach this in Congress in terms of the national minimum wage?
Mine first?
Yes.
I've thought about this quite a bit, actually. Washington State has the dubious honor of being #1 in the country, at least in this category. We are the top when it comes to minimum wage. And so when some are saying that the rest of the country should be at $10 when we're almost there, you have to stop and ask yourself, now, we are at a competitive disadvantage because other states are lower. So what's right for the country? What's right for Washington State? This whole notion of the minimum wage and the automatic increase that we have in the state of Washington, which the people voted on, and so that's the way, the law of the land here, to me is a spiral that continues up, and really, in the end, doesn't necessarily help those people it was intended to. As wages go up, that pushes wages at every level up, that pushes costs up, so the things that people buy, their buying power does not go up at the same rate as the wage goes up. Everything moves up. So I'm thinking that maybe we are using the wrong indicator, the consumer price index out of Seattle, if that's what it is, I believe it is, seems that it doesn't adequately reflect what it should be. So I have real problems with a forced minimum wage. $15, just don't think it's in King County alone. It could be coming to a community near you. This will be an issue, I'm sure, in this upcoming legislative session in Olympia. And so it's an issue that we all have to be aware of. And that's a discussion that I think we all need to be part of.
I believe you got me on? I believe the federal government has no interest in setting a minimum wage for any state. This is a states' right issue. This president and any president has jurisdiction over the executive branch. All of the orders that he gives, these executive orders, were supposed to be confined to the executive branch. He's outside of his designated powers, as well as the judicial and the Congress. Everybody is outside of their powers right now. Nobody's living within the confines of what they were given within the Constitution. Minimum wage, if you keep driving it up, you're just going to drive up the price of goods on everyone. Because innovation is going to take hold, people are going to be out of jobs, and there won't be any work. We have to let the free market system set the wage scale. How else is someone out of high school supposed to develop a work ethic when nobody will hire them because minimum wage is too high? That is how they develop a work ethic, is going to work for somebody and earning a decent wage, but not an inflated wage, and learn how to work. This is what we're finding in the farm community. They're pricing us out of hiring kids. The Department of Labor and Industries won't let them hire them anyway, because the rules and regs that they put on us, we can't follow. We need to get our children back to working and earning and having a self-worth as an American.
Thank you, Mr. Didier. Here's a question, and I'm going to start with you on this. It's about tax reform. Big issue, and you only get 2 minutes. But a regional chamber member asks, many businesses and citizens believe comprehensive tax reform would benefit the economy. Do you agree? And if so, what examples of tax reform would you support as our congressperson?
The word comprehensive has not been defined. And if you look at every time they use comprehensive immigration reform, comprehensive tax reform, there's no guidelines, there's no guidance for where it's supposed to be contained within. Honestly, let's get back to looking at what Ronald Reagan did for America. We got to lower the corporate tax rates. We got to get our tax rates as individuals down. We got to let people profit so they invest. Because right now, everybody's paying such a high rate of taxes, nobody wants to put their money on the playing field. And to feel comfortable in putting your money on the playing field, you have to feel like you have a nest egg built up. Right now, we're not building a nest egg. How many of you feel more secure now than you did 6 years ago? We have to get back to the principles of this free market system. Lower tax rates. Get rid of the corporate tax. Get rid of the death tax. The death tax was put into place to pay for wars. The last time it was implemented, World War I. It was implemented 3 times before that and repealed each time the debt was paid off. Today, it's still with us after World War I. It's never been repealed. My wife and I, if we were to suddenly die, our children would have to sell our farm in order to pay the tax bill. Now, that's a travesty. We have to get rid of the death tax. We have to rein in this federal government that has such a thirst for our money that we can't shut the spigot off. That's what I want to do, is shut this spigot off. Cut the funds to the federal government.
You know, government doesn't produce anything, doesn't sell anything, cannot create wealth. It can create the environment to create wealth. And that's, I think, the government's role. Comprehensive tax reform, the word comprehensive to me is fraught with danger. The last time that we had comprehensive tax reform, my CPA said the tax code increased about double. So it didn't simplify things, it didn't make things easier, it made it more complicated. I think we have a system in the country today where the minority of people, the smaller amount of people, pay the majority of the taxes. It seems to me that it would be fairer if everyone had a little bit of an investment in the future of our country to pay as our ability to pay. To me, that makes most sense, even if it's a small amount. If you contribute, you feel ownership. You have an ability to have a say. I think that would help in a lot of different ways. So simplification, an equitable system, a fair system, something that is key to a business person is something that they can count on, a tax system that doesn't change on an annual basis, so that you have the ability to make investments and feel comfortable that the tax code is not going to cut your legs out from underneath you. That's the kind of thing that we need to provide, some continuity in our tax code as we move forward. Then some of that money that we hear about, millions of dollars that people are sitting on, that are uneasy about investing, I think would show up, would start investing into the infrastructure, the economic engine of our country. That's what we need, and that's what I would strive to do as your congressman.
Thank you, Dan. Here's a question for you. If elected, what committees will you push to serve on in Washington, D.C., knowing that, of course, you don't just sign up and get on the committee, but how would you use these posts to represent the economic interests of the 4th District?
Well, I'm certain as soon as I get there, they're going to give me everything I want, right? Yeah. As a freshman congressman, probably not. But what I want to do, and this is a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, I've thought more about November 4th than November 5th, to tell you the truth. But going to Washington, D.C., I would want to be on those committees that would best serve the 4th District. So agriculture would be my first choice. To have someone from the 4th District on the Ag Committee, I think would be significant and something we haven't had for a long time. I also want to be in the most advantageous place, the best committee, to impact those things that pertain to Hanford. And knowing I probably won't get every choice I want, if I put in for appropriations, I've already been told that that's not likely. So what's next? Armed services, I'm told, is a good spot. But those are the kinds of decisions that will drive me, the kinds of things that will drive my decision making. Where can I be most impactful? So whether it's ag, whether it's armed services, whether it's appropriations, the kinds of things that are, we have a huge federal presence in the 4th District. There's no two ways around it. Whether it's through our irrigation projects, through the nuclear reservation, there's a lot of things that the federal government has invested here. And so those are the kinds of things that I will be looking for where I can be most impactful.
Well, Doc serves on the Natural Resource Committee. Very important for the 4th Congressional, because this is where he learned of the White Bluffs bladder pot. Hanford being out here, defense, ag. As a farmer, I'm very interested in ag. But if we don't get rid of that Speaker of the House, he's already stated that if we're not on his side, I'll probably get my office in the outhouse. Pretty much assured. Because he's already told them back there already, if you're not with me, you're not going to get any posts on any of your, what you want to serve under on committee. So I'm going to go back there with high hopes. High hopes of getting rid of this Speaker of the House and getting a Speaker of the House that will truly take on the federal government and rein in this out of control spending. And I'm going to join with my Liberty Caucus members to make sure that that gets done. They already have a game plan. That's why you're seeing the onslaught of West Side politicians coming over here to make sure that you don't vote for Clint Didier, because they don't want change. They want this thing to run just the same way it's been running, right off the cliff. So a vote for me is a vote for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to the final phase, and that is closing remarks. Those are 2 minutes long, and again, our timers will be timing that. Because Clint started with opening, we're going to start with you, Dan, for closing.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christine, and thanks to everybody for being here today to listen in and to hopefully help make up your mind on this important election decision that you have. I believe America's at a crossroads. We have a lot of important issues facing us as a country today. We truly do. From healthcare to the national debt, to immigration, to the Middle East. The list is long. There's a lot of things that we face that need the right decisions made. I think the experience that I have as being a business person, serving in the state legislature, running a state agency, those are the kinds of things that I think will help me to serve you in Congress as your congressman. But I want to impress upon you, one of the biggest things I learned working in public service in Washington State. As you know, we live in a blue state, and I was always elected as a Republican. If I wanted to accomplish anything in Olympia, I had to learn to work across the aisle, to learn to work with people that I maybe didn't agree with, maybe didn't even care for. But you have to do that. You have to work with people to find common ground, not to sacrifice your core principles. And I know you can do that in order to move issues forward, to find solutions to problems. That's what I want to do. I'm not going to go and pound on the table, get in front of radio talk show hosts, and spout the things that I believe in. I want to work with people to find solutions to so many critical issues that we face as a nation. We need that. We need Congress to do that. You know, I'm as frustrated as anybody in this district, just like a lot of people probably in front of us today. We have to have people that want to find solutions in Washington, D.C., and I assure you that that's what I want to do as well. We have a bright future. You know, America is a great country. We have so many things going for us, but we need people that have a vision and make the right decisions to make sure that we realize that bright future. Thank you very much again for coming today.
Clint.
Well, thank you for all you coming today. It's been a pleasure to address you. As your next congressman, I've made my pledge. You know where I stand. And let's look back in history. What did our founding fathers intend to be filled in the House of Representatives? Commoners, you and I, business people, to go back, serve, and then to come back to what you love. And that's what I intend to do. I'm not going to be a career politician. And I hear all this about experience. Let me ask you this. If experience, intellectuals, and money were the answer to our problems, then why are we in this mess? Quite honestly, it's because of experience. It's because of the ties to big corporate chemical companies and the fact that we don't live by the rule of law, the law of this country, the supreme law of the land. When we have a president that tramples all over it, why does anybody else have to uphold to it? As your next congressman, I will uphold the law of the land. And I will be part of the group of men that'll hold every person back there. And if you want to know what type of legislator I'm going to be, you've already seen it. When I see corruption, I'm going to expose it. I'm not afraid. Because it's not me that it's going to affect. It's our children, our grandchildren, and every generation to come to have their shot at this American dream. We are the bright, shiny city on the side of the hill. That's why everybody's trying to get here. We have to preserve it. We have to remove ourselves from this United Nations and their influence on our country, because they are influencing us very heavily at this point in time, as you well seen yesterday with Barack Obama's appearance at the UN.
Thank you, Mr. Didier. You know, this is the first time that these two gentlemen, having gone through the primary process and gone forward to the general here, have been on the same stage. They have many other appointments I've looked at into their future, but this is the first time that you have heard the two of them side by side. And don't go away yet. And I commend the Regional Chamber for putting this together. It's a wonderful event. Today's forum is all about choice, you know, because in a democracy, we pick. We are the ones that pick this person. So it was your job today to listen and think about those questions and how do you come down on those issues and which candidate fills your box most often. We get one vote, all of us, one precious vote. So I'll tell you what, if you are not registered, I will be happy to escort you to help you fulfill that process. Literally, I'm not kidding. Look me up. I will help you get registered. Because isn't it something that we all should be doing? There shouldn't be a single person in this room who doesn't vote. The general election is Tuesday, November 4th. Thank you, both of you. Good luck to both Clint Didier and Dan Newhouse. Thank you.